Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Heart and Home. My name is John, and this is
Michelle.
All right, guys. This is part number three.
Yes.
All right, listen, before we go any further, if you have not seen part number one, part number two, you can stay here, but it will make more sense if you catch the first two,
Yes.
then come back to this one. Like I said, you can stay here if you want, but it will make more sense. Watch one, watch two, because we've been sharing our story. We've been going through our story,
Yes,
how we got together, and really, now we're at this stage where we are starting to date, right? And we get to this point, and there's this, and that's what we want to get to today. This very real moment when we thought this wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
That's where we're going today, guys. That's where we're going today. So that's what we want to unpack. You know, like I said, we were going through our story. We've shared a lot of our stories so far, and we kind of just been taken into phases. So now we're kind of at the wedding bells are about to ring, and
Yes.
and they're about to not be rung.
Yes. So we didn't really go into our dating story, which is there's a reason why, because we did a lot of getting to know each other while we were friends.
Yeah.
And so when we started dating kind of like came with like its ebbs and flows of like like what is friendship, what is dating, what does this mean for us? And one of the things I think we did discuss has been that once we started dating, we knew that this wasn't going to be like a situationship. We knew that it wasn't going to be like a friends with benefits type of situation. Like we kind of like jump started and we went off running once we really were like, okay, this is who we really want to be together. And we met our parents quickly, family quickly, and stuff kind of just started going pretty quickly. You know, life happened in the midst of that. John joined the Marines, and one big thing that happened was that we both came to Christ.
All at the same time.
And so like this, at some point we'll share like our faith story and our testimony, but not today, because then we end up getting into muddy waters. So when John came back from the Marines, he proposed to me and we got engaged. We were very, very baby Christians, and so very much still in the flesh. And when we got engaged, we celebrated a lot, and we ended up finding out about 8 weeks later that we were expecting a baby girl. And so, we didn't know she was going to be a girl at that time, but we knew that we were expecting. And so life kind of like it moved very quickly. We were seniors in college, and so we had to make quick decisions. We had to, at least for me, I was due end of March, early April. And I said I have to finish college. Like that for me was very pressing, because my dad, one of the things that he didn't want me to go away to college was because he was afraid that I was gonna come back home with a souvenir, as he called it, and not with a degree. So I wanted to make sure, yes, I'm coming back with a little souvenir, a little baby on the way, but I also wanted to make sure that I had my degree. And so I had about 8 classes left, and I spoke to my professors and we made it work so that I could finish in one semester. And so my senior year was the first time we were engaged, and the pressure was on, like the countdown was on for me to finish college at a specific time and to have like my internship hours. And so I was working 2 jobs, one of them which was completing my internship hours. I was doing 8 courses, so 6 on paper, and then 2 independent classes. And I was also preparing for being a mom for the first time. So our marriage was not like our wedding bells. Like we were not planning a wedding. Like when we first got engaged, we thought this is going to be a long engagement, you know? So I think it was just cementing the deal. And I guess I'll let you go into that, like when you knew to propose, or if that's a story for another day. But I think it was more of like, yes, for sure, you're my person. I think our engagement was more that.
Yeah.
For sure, you're my person. It doesn't matter where I am. You're the person that I'm looking for. You're the person that I want to share my life with. I don't think we necessarily thought we're going to get engaged.
Yeah.
And we're going to go straight into marriage. So I'll let you share a little bit.
Yeah. I would say in terms of from like a recap standpoint, if you guys watched the first two, you know this. If you didn't, go back and you'll hear the rest of this.
Yes.
But so we were like just really good friends, you know, and so that's the context we knew each other. But then when we started to make this decision to actually start dating, it was actually one of her friends. Well, she was more her friend than my friend, but we mutual friends pretty much.
Friends, yeah.
And she was kind of like in, you know, our ear about, you know, about, hey, do you like this person, whatnot. So
she was playing matchmaker.
Yeah, she was definitely playing matchmaker. But we jumped into, because we had established, we were just kind of no one was thinking in terms of like, none of us were really thinking in terms of like dating. So the context of our foundation was friendship. But
yes,
when we start to date, and I made this decision to go to the Marines, and because I had always wanted to go to the Marines, but I was like, I'm doing this. Ain't nobody stopping me. I'm doing it right now. So I left, came back. But then when I came back, I think I had become a new Christian in boot camp.
Yes.
So I was already like, for the most part, I was always been a jokester, but I knew how to go from full-on joking to like full-on serious.
Yeah.
So I have like two extremes.
Yeah, very much extremes. And I also gave my life to the Lord when John was in boot camp. So
right around the same time. So I give my life to. So when I come back, you know, I was still in joke mode, but I'm like my military mind. Come back, and I still had to go back for some additional trainings and
finishing school.
Yeah, finish school and stuff like that. So I still have more commitments that I need to complete. But anyway, when I come back, I like, for whatever reason in my mind, I'm like, all right, we're dating. Then there's no reason to wait. Like, I'm proposing. We know that we are together. We should do this. So my brain was already like future.
Yes.
And like Michelle said, we didn't account for parenting. So that was our own kind of flesh, and we have been apart from each other. And sure enough, that's what happened.
We were reunited,
and it felt so good.
Yes, it did.
So that's what happened. But but fast forward, because we had that, well, we were jumping from just friends to dating, and then from dating to engagement, I think it added a lot of pressure.
Oh, it added a lot of
pressure. And then when we find out we're having a child, and this is all obviously leading up to this point of this kind of turning point in our story, because now we're compounded, because now it's like, now we're saying this is serious.
So we're starting from, if you watch the previous videos, we're starting from zero pressure. We are just being fully 100% ourselves. To now, John has, like, I'm in the military, I'm a Marine, I have this training which is laser focused on these specific things. We're both trying to finish college, which adds to the pressure of what happens after this, and then now we are about to be parents. So now we have our parents looking at us like, one, both of you are still babies, and two, our babies are about to have a baby. So when you add all of that to it, there was a lot of voices, a lot of opinions, when the perfect part about being friends was there was no pressure.
You got all the freedom in the world.
We were a breath of fresh air to each other as friends, but now in life, I had to remember now I have to trust you. And I have to trust your choices, and I have to trust your leadership. And I have to, on top of the fact that what does it mean to be a new believer? And now we know the baby is coming before the wedding, so now we're in sin and we're feeling some shame and kind of condemnation with that, and trying to do all the things all at once. So it just felt like a lot.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, while you're feeling all of these things, what did you want to do? Meaning, there was certain things that you had to do. Like, in your mind, I gotta show up, I gotta be responsible, I gotta do all these things. But internally, what are you feeling?
You know, I've always been someone who, if I'm like locked in on something, like this is happening, like this, we're doing this, and I think at that, especially at that time, when I'm like, my Marine mentality is just, we're guns a blazing, right? Yep. But I think my brain is just going. My body is probably like, oh my goodness, like this is a lot, you know. But obviously, I'm not admitting to that, because no, I'm not admitting to that. I'm a United States Marine. Like, no one's admitting to that. No Marine is admitting to this is too much. Yeah. But in that time, it's a lot, because trying to understand what it means to be a parent, trying to understand what it means to be I think that was a little bit harder. Yeah. Was trying to figure out what it means to be a believer, because in my military world, I mean, if you are in the military, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is not a Christ-centered environment. Like, no. So there's a lot of conversations that are happening. There's a lot of things that go on in the military that are so counter what the scripture says. So now I'm navigating that. And I'm navigating, trying to figure out what's next, because now I'm like, wait, and now I have these commitments, but in my brain, I'm like, I want to do this military thing, and after that, I want to do law enforcement. So that's my brain. So it's like, so I think a part of it is like, man, does this hinder my plan? Like, this is not the time frame I set. Like, so you have all these steps that you're thinking. So that was just a lot of weight. So I don't necessarily think I was thinking. I wasn't necessarily thinking those things, but I can definitely tell you that I was feeling those things. Yeah. Because it's like, wow, what happens now? Yeah. And there's just so much unknowns. Yeah. You know. And like Michelle said, it's like, now, you know, you go to college, you're doing all these things, and so you have in your brain what it should look like, and this is so outside of what the pattern is supposed to be.
Very outside of what the pattern is supposed to be.
Yeah, so now we're dating, we are engaged,
we're expecting,
we're
new believers,
we're brand new believers,
we're broke,
very broke.
Yes, we were. Oh my gosh.
Now we're on the road to a wedding, you know, and so I think there's a lot that happened that during that time, that it was only by the grace of God that we even got married.
It really was. And so I think that, how can I say it? Trying to think back, 21-year-old Michelle, I was not prepared to be a mom. I was not prepared to be a wife. I was still trying to figure myself out. And I think that in coming to Christ, I also felt like, what does that look like? The only believer I really knew at that time was my grandmother. And I remember that my grandmother is like, your whole life changes. How you speak, how you dress, how you move, so I think it just added more pressure, like, versus drawing me to God. I think it brought a lot of confusion. And then I was adding a lot of pressure to you. Like, I was adding a lot of pressure to John, for sure. And I'm like, as a wife, I expect you to do this, and that. Like, I expect you to lead us. I expect you to guide us. I expect you to provide for us. Like, when I went from being somebody that was very confident, very self-assured, very much knew what I wanted in certain regards, very laser focused on one thing, I became extremely self-conscious. And I felt like John needed to be the steady hand that I wasn't at that moment. And I think that for me, I just became very like not trusting of John. And to be honest with you, I wanted just to run. I wanted to run and hide under a rock if I could. I wanted to like rewind a lot of stuff and just slow things all the way down. And if I had like the power to go back into the future, I would have got on my DeLorean and been like, we're rewinding a few months back and just doing this all over again.
For sure.
But what ended up happening was we had to tell our parents. I'm very, very grateful that John's parents were very gracious.
Yeah, they were good about it.
My parents were like, this is not what we expected from you. I'm not their oldest child, but I am the oldest daughter.
Yeah.
So it became almost like Michelle's always been the straight and narrow, always done this, always trying to do the right thing. And so for them, it seemed almost like, unlike me, to not have factored in contraceptive, pretty much like to not have factored in this could happen and then what happens now. And so I'm like pressing for time to be like, okay, well, we're due end of March, early April. I would have to finish school by December. I've never given birth. What happens now? Like I started living in the future. What happens now? I have to fast forward and move this way. Versus I feel that for as much as I wanted to like get something out of John, like what are we going to do next? The more I pressed John, the more like calm he got, the more like settled in. I'm not moving fast, because when we got engaged, we didn't get engaged because you were expecting. We got engaged before we knew this was happening. So I'm not going to let anybody move my hand. Now, one thing you got to learn about this sir over here is when he says no, it's no. Like, that's a definitive no. There ain't no amount of scenario painting that you give for him and what about this and what about that would change that no. And he was so certain on, I propose to you because I love you, I want to marry you, but I'm not going to get married just because this will appease our parents, your parents, because this is going to make it look better because of whatever. At the end of the day, we're not going to get married in this fashion. We're not going to get married to soothe what other people want. And really what it was my own insecurity, but it was also a lot of voices. It was also a lot of voices.
There's a lot of voices, especially when you're that young. You have a lot of voices. You still have a lot of voices, even now. I mean, your parents are your parents. People are people.
It doesn't matter how old you are.
Doesn't matter how old you are. But I think that from why we're calling it this, that the marriage that almost didn't happen, is because a lot of those factors play into it.
Yes, it did.
Where you got a lot of voices trying to figure out marriage, trying to figure out life and all these things. And after that point of just like saying like, no, we are not doing this just for the sake of doing this. Eventually got to the point of saying, yeah, we are going to do this. But we were at each other's throats.
We really were.
There was just, and you start to see the unraveling. Because now it's like, now we're just frustrated at each other, at life. Now our daughter's here. Now she had flown back up to where I was. And it was just...
And I was done with school.
Yeah, she was done with school.
I was done with school in December. I went to the city to give birth. John flew down for the birth. And then now we're parents. And
now we're like parents. Oh my goodness.
In love with the baby.
Yeah.
And I'm losing my mind because I don't know what it's like to be a mom. And I'm hormonal.
And then you have more voices.
And then you have more voices.
Now you have people talking to you about the child, how to raise the child.
People are visiting you, and this is how you put a car seat, and this is how you burp them correctly. So like the pressure didn't stop.
Yeah.
And then we did consider getting married. And that fell apart. Like we were gonna get married in the courthouse.
Yeah, that was a whole
other story, and it didn't happen. And so at this point, I was like, we're never gonna get married. Like at this point, John doesn't like. He gave me a ring. He's ready to get married. So he says he's ready to get married, but I don't see him moving. I don't see him doing like. I don't see him like moving with the urgency that I felt that he should have been moving. And of course, because of that, I now am always pressing John for answers when I was not like that whatsoever. I was very much like, this is what I'm thinking. And I will let him process, because I am very much like a verbal processor and he's not whatsoever. And when we were just dating or when we were just friends, that was perfectly fine. Now all of a sudden the pressure's on, and I'm like, okay, I need this to be processed like microwave time. I can't wait for like this media mail 6 to 7 business days. I need you to like give me an answer, you know? And so I come up to Buffalo, and we have the baby, and we're getting ready for our college graduation. And John is very much in the throes of like discipleship. He has like a Bible study group that he's part of. He's very much immersed in the Word of God, when I was not at all. Like, I gave birth to my daughter and I was like, Lord, I need you to help me to be a mom.
Yeah.
But I had not fully like surrendered my life to Christ. So although I did become a believer a year previous to that, life started, like when life went fast forward for me, it was very hard for me to like try to get grounded in anything. But John, give me this. John, let's do this. Like I literally became like a nag for John versus like a place where John could rest, which was what we were for each other. And that was not the case whatsoever. And so anyway, John is like, he gives me a Bible. And he gives me a Bible and he engraved my name on it with his last name. And so I was like, okay, this is like a, what they call that? Like a good faith, you know, like, oh, this must mean
good
something.
Faith offering.
Yeah, like this must mean something because he put my name with what would be my new last name, whatever. And so I felt like, okay, maybe this could be something, right? Because he gives me a Bible. But then the pressure becomes like, well, now we're believers, so I don't believe that we should be sleeping together until we get married. And now, of course, now my antennas are up because I'm like, wait a second. This was never an issue before. But now, remember, John is in the throes of discipleship. And it's like, I'm trying to live a life for God. I'm trying to live a life that honors God. But for me, you got to resolve for me and you're not doing it. You know, you gotta come through, and you moving too slow for me. And so what ends up happening is that John invites me to his church, and I go to his church. And during the service, Kaylee was exactly a month old, and she's sleeping, which was a miracle because child did not sleep. And she's sleeping during the service, and I reconcile my relationship with the Lord. So then I think that once John saw that, I think that that's what he was waiting for, or that's what he was praying for. I have no idea, but I know that that was the moment, at least that I feel that you broke down a little bit of your guards that you had with me when I reconciled my life with the Lord, because John was looking at his life like, this is what I want. And it was so contrary to the direction in which I was going. And we made an appointment with his pastor, and his pastor met with us and talked to us about like, well, if you guys are planning to get married, this is what marriage is really about. He gave us a book. He's like, if I knew that this was like, you weren't going to go, because we were going to go back home in 2 weeks. Yeah. He's like, if I knew that if I knew that you guys were not rushing, I would do premarital counseling with you guys. So I'm just kind of
short.
He did like quick. A fast forward. He did like an hour and a half with us or something like that. He gave us a few pointers, and then he said, if this is really what God wants for you, then it doesn't matter like what, basically like the opposition doesn't matter. The Lord will bring the union together, you know, but this is something that you're going to work on. And he, for the first time, like, it wasn't just like the marriage is going to resolve anything. So I think that it was almost like words I needed to hear, because I just felt like if something was certain in a moment in my life where everything seemed uncertain, I just needed like something to feel grounded. And really my answer was Jesus, but I just was looking everywhere else for it. Well, not even everywhere else. I was looking to John for it. Like, you gotta come through, you know? And so so he told us that, and then we left. And then that's when we came back home, John was like, okay, well, if we get married, where are we going to get married? You know, and that's where we started having the conversation.
Yeah.
And I remember that John called Pastor Benson, and he said, Pastor, could you marry us? And he said, when you're going back home?
Yeah,
in like
it was
weeks,
a fast track. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think it was interesting because at that time, again, we're still, even when we're saying, doing all these things, we're still at each other's throats.
Oh no, we're fighting all the time. We're annoyed at each other.
Yeah. So I think it's hysterical to think that, because we're like, you would think that we would stop all those conversations. No. So that's how we know that God was in this, because, well, now I know that God is in this, because at home we're like just not in a good place. But then on the same track, on the opposite track, parallel to each other, is this process. So, but what's interesting is that we see God in the midst of this, because he moves the heart of this pastor, who knows me somewhat, but I'm not like a long-standing congregant there. He doesn't know Michelle at all. But he gives really solid advice in terms of saying, listen, the marriage doesn't necessarily, it's not fixing this problem, you know. But having Jesus at the center of the marriage, so he counseled us. But God was so faithful, because, it was fast tracked, but we saw his hand in it. Like, he moved the church to do a video, have a cake, do all these things, that because we didn't have money.
We didn't have any money. No.
It was literally just us and friends. But it was
at the end of the semester. When everybody's trying to pack up to go home and do finals,
But to see that, this time, it's like, oh my goodness, like, this is so fast. But the reality is that that night before, it's like, okay, Lord, don't make this happen. This is craziness, because this is just too messy. But God still comes through. So even up to that point, it's like, even up to that night, it was like, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
But literally that next day, we saw the hand of God in between the friends who prepared the right things to throw. We saw this church who doesn't know us, who prepares a cake, does a video, marries us, our friends walking her down the aisle, my best man, you saw that hand of God in all of this.
We had a full
join us in all
we
this.
had a full-blown wedding. And what I mean by that, our parents couldn't make it because we got married a day before our college graduation, and our parents were set to come the morning of our graduation. So they were like, we can't just change everything. So it was
we're doing this.
Yeah, John, we're like, it's now or never. John's Bible study friends is the people that came. The wedding that we were gonna do through the courthouse, I had purchased clothes, and by faith I brought them, because remember, at this time I'm thinking John's never gonna get married. He's resolved to push this as far as possible. And so I had a white outfit. John wore his dress blues. We had flowers. The church somebody from the church decorated the church. Somebody took pictures. We had a musician.
Only God, because we
had zero money. We didn't know these people.
We paid not one penny for any of this. This was not, and mind you, no, disclaimer, this is not this spectacular thing.
But it was a very simple wedding,
but it was God's hand in this.
Yeah.
So I think that,
and not to knock anything, but it was a church wedding. It wasn't a quick courthouse wedding, which is what we wanted to do. Almost just we wanted. I think I just wanted a certainty, and I just wanted something that was a quick Band-Aid. I just want to feel good about something, something that is complete at that time, and it just didn't end up being how I thought. And so when I think back to that time, I'm like, wow, God, you provided such a sweet ceremony in a church with people that were praying for us, fasting for us, interceding for us, a pastor that had a heart for a young couple that was a young family. And it's that verse, a cord of three strands is not easily broken. And so I think that in the midst of it, we've always remembered, God has to be at the center of our marriage,
for sure.
So yeah, so it almost didn't happen because literally it just kind of like literally it was the intervention of the Lord when Pastor Benson is like, I can't marry you guys, and then he calls us back and he's like, well, I have the 14th.
I can't do this day.
I can't do this day, and because we were like,
and we're like,
maybe
sure.
he could marry us the 15th. We were like, maybe he could marry us the 15th before our graduation, and I believe the 16th was Mother's Day, and he's like, oh no, I can't, he had a wedding that day or something
going on,
and he's like, but I could marry you the 14th at 11.
We're like, our friends are like supporting, we're like, let's do this.
Yeah, and so we did it. So it was our John's Bible Study Group, Faith, Hope, and Love. If you're watching, you guys were the MVPs, and we literally got married that early morning, and we've been married 21 years.
Now, thoughts. Let's get some final thoughts here.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you say?
Yeah.
In thinking about all this, So let's put ourselves back in our 21-year-old brain. 21-year-old brain. What advice would you give to our 21-year-old self? Thinking back now,
I would say, Michelle, take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
God is holding on to you more than you believe. So God has a plan. And even though it doesn't seem like it, like he has you in the palm of his hands. Like that's the best and the most steady hand that you ever want to be held in, you know? Yeah. And I think God has been so merciful in just always showing me like his immense love for me. Mm-hmm. And in the midst of you being like anxious and worried and not certain of like what your future holds, like he has your days numbered. Like the difficult moments are gonna bring you closer to him. Yeah. The moments where you're crying, he like reminds us in his words, like even your tears are counted in his bottle. Yeah. Like there is not a day, there's not a thing that God would not redeem. Yeah. You know, and so like when I think about that time, I'm like, wow, we were babies. We really were. And I put so much pressure on you. And really is because I had no knowledge of the fact that I could literally cast my burdens on God. Yeah. And he is mighty enough to be able to hold it, and it's nothing to him. But when I'm putting it on you, it's like a weight that you're not even supposed to bear. And so it's so understanding. Like now I could go back and in hindsight be able to say like, wow, honey, I should have never done that to you, which I really shouldn't have. But I honestly didn't know any better. At that moment, I was just trying to find a grounding. I was trying to have a certainty. I was trying to be secure in a moment where anybody would feel insecure. And so I wanted the wedding to be final. I wanted to know how to parent. I wanted to fast forward. But there is a blessing in the process. Like there is a God that you find and that you see and that you experience in the process. Yeah, and to this day, it's still like I'm speaking to my 21-year-old self, but I'm literally speaking to myself right now. Like there is a God that sees me and that now I get to see in the midst of the process. There is a God that reminds me of the certainty of the security that I can find under his wings. And that's exactly where I'm supposed to be hidden under. So in those moments where I feel unsure of where life is taking me and where I'm going, I have to remember, like, I go to him. I come to him. I surrender to him. I shed my tears with him. I cast the weight of the world that's on my shoulders on him. And I remember that he does have my days numbered, you know? So what would you tell your 21-year-old self now that you, in hindsight, you know? I
would say, and it's funny, I think I'm still telling myself this now, but I think I would tell my 21-year-old self and it's so funny because I should have known this, especially from a military tactical kind of position, that the pivots are okay. You know, just because your journey isn't necessarily marching in the same path you anticipated, you planned, that's okay. You can just breathe, relax, right, and go with that pivot. trust the Lord in that process. But I think being okay with that, I think being okay with the fact that the picture may look different, and kind of just surrendering, well, not really surrendering, I would say dying to people's expectations, because I think sometimes we put a lot of weight on what people think, what people feel, people are gonna think. I think we put a lot on that, especially nowadays. I feel like we put a lot on that, and we put up pressure on ourselves that when it doesn't look that way, that something is wrong. It's not, it's not gonna be as. There's so many people who probably have had way better weddings, had way better marriage stories, who probably had a honeymoon. We didn't have a honeymoon. Who probably had all these things. Who
we
probably
had our honeymoon last year.
Yes, exactly.
Like 20
years later. Who probably had all these things, who are probably a divorce right now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to look exactly how the textbook looks like, right? But being all right with that, because I think if you trust the Lord, you can trust the pivots, you can trust the changes, and just kind of being okay with that, just kind of being all right with, if the cuts on the road, the shifts on the road, that they're just not as clean as you would like, and that it's all right.
Being all right with the muddy mess. And I think a few years back I did a course. By the way, this course was amazing. It was called Empower. It was through NIAC when NIAC was still around. I believe they still have that program, but it was a phenomenal program. And at the end, your mentor gives you like a paper, and in that paper, which I now that I'm thinking about it, I have to look for it. It was almost like God sees you even in your messy moments.
I like that.
And God is with you even when it doesn't look perfect.
Yeah.
And and I think that was like just a reminder, like God loves us even when it doesn't look like it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
God is still behind the scenes when you're like, can I rewind the tape and try this over again? God really has, and I say that it is the Lord, because anybody that is not a believer is probably like, oh, they throw around the word God, and it's just because it ended up working out. Like, we're still working through a lot of stuff, and it is really just the mercy of God.
For
because
sure.
If it was based on me a long time ago, I just would have run. I would have been like, we could co-parent and we don't got to do this relationship thing. And God has been just really gracious, like even how our parents get along, like how your parents came and just were like so strong for me in a season where I was just like, I didn't have the words for how to feel. My parents didn't have the words for how to process. And John's parents just literally took me in and were just like breathe. This happens.
Sure.
And I think also it just shows me constantly that there is not a step that you could make that God can't redeem. There's not a thing that you can lose that God can't restore. And I think that's still what we constantly see, like God providing, maybe not how we thought or what we wanted or what we expected, right? Because we're thinking we're going to go to grad school. This is going to be a long engagement. We're going to get to travel. We're no longer going to be in the dorms. We're going to get to work. We're thinking all these things. And the way that God just literally twisted up, and maybe it was just our path and how God had to like redirect us. But the reality was, like, looking back at our story, it has been such a beautiful testimony of just God's grace. Like, should we be married at this moment? Probably not. Should we have 4 kids right now? Probably not. Does life look perfect? No, but it's like perfectly chaotic with God. Like, his fingerprints are all over it, and still to this day, it's like we run to him, we come to him, we thankfully have not been in the place where it's like, I can't talk to you, whatever, because it's always a reminder. My burdens are cast on God. Having a good marriage relationship is amazing, but I don't put on John pressure that's not meant for him to hold. My expectation is that God will be the one that fully satisfies me, and my husband is my bonus. It's not the other way around, because if I put all this pressure on John is supposed to fulfill, you're a man that will fail me at some point, not because you want to, but just because you're limited.
Yeah, we're human.
You know, we're human. And so, yeah, in your own humanity, you just can't always be there. But if I am constantly finding my satisfaction in God, then anybody, not just my husband, but every other relationship I have is a bonus. I'm not in expectation that anybody else will perfectly fill what I need them to fill. So
listen, guys, we would love to hear your comments.
Yes.
Your thoughts on any of this, any questions you have. Love to hear your story. And listen, if you got any prayer requests, anything you guys have on your mind, drop it in the comments. We'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on anything you've heard. So we have really enjoyed sharing this.
Letting you get a glimpse into who we are. A
little bit of our background. And now that we have finished this part of the series, we would love to know what you would want to hear now.
Yes.
But you know, we just enjoy kind of sharing throughout this process. But listen, guys, thank you for staying to the very end. Again, make sure you watch all 3 of this series. And
if you haven't, like, comment, subscribe.
That's right.
Yes.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.